The Lotus Sutra, chapters 24, the Bodhisattva Wondrous Sound, and chapter 25, the Bodhisattva Regarder of the Sounds of the World as the Universal Gateway. We're going to combine these in today's discussion. And as we always do, we start with an opening recitation. I would invite you to please join me in this recitation that we do. It's a couple of pages here. There's a lot to get through, and we're going to be doing it in English. Then the Buddha wisdom of the pure flower constellation king dressed the Bodhisattva wondrous sound, saying, "Do not think of that land as inferior or treat it lightly. Good son, that Saha world has high and low places, and its ground is uneven, full of rocky soil and mountains, and teeming with filth. Buddha there is pitifully small in body, and his bodhisattva smaller still in stature, whereas your body is 42,000 yojanas tall. Mine 6,800,000 yojanas. Your body is most noble and bearing and well proportioned, has hundreds of thousands of splendid features, and is wondrously radiant. Therefore, when you go there, take care. Make light of the Buddha and his bodhisattvas, or treat their land as inferior. Listen to the deeds of this regarder of sounds. Responds to cries from every quarter. Her vast oath runs deep as the sea. She has made a great pure vow. Seeing her physical form and calling her to mind is never in vain. Is able to eliminate the sufferings of existence by calling to mind the power of the regarder of sounds. Beings are beset by woes and burdened by countless pains. The wondrous wisdom power, the regarder of sounds, can free them from the sufferings of the world. Lens of the 10 directions, there is no place she does not manifest herself. Her true regard, pure regard, vastly wise regard, merciful regard, and compassionate are always emulated and ever revered. She is a pure, unclouded beacon of light, a sun of wisdom, destroying all darkness, subduer of the winds and flames of misfortune, and a light shining everywhere in the world. Body is the precept of mercy that roars like thunder. Her mind is wondrous compassion that expands like a great cloud. Pour forth the sweet dew of Dharma rain, wondrous voice, world regarding voice, Brahma voice, and voice of the rolling tide. 'Tis a voice unsurpassed in the world, therefore she should constantly be called to mind. For have a moment of doubt about the regarder of the sounds of the world. Pure sage who can provide a reliable refuge from suffering, distress, danger, and death. With every virtue she beholds living beings with eyes of compassion. Her blessings are an ocean vast and immeasurable. Therefore with heads bowed revere her. In our opening Kai-gyo-ge, we say, the most profound and wonderful teaching is presented in this sutra. This sutra is difficult to meet even once in thousands and millions of aeons. Now we have been able to see, hear, receive, and keep this sutra. May we understand the most excellent teaching of the Tathagata. We're combining these two chapters because sound and listening, this idea in the Kaigyoge that we see and hear and receive, they go together. Chapter 25, about Bodhisattva, regarder of the cries of the world, is perhaps the most popular chapter of the entire Lotus Sutra throughout the whole world, and is most frequently chanted around all East Asian countries. Chapter 24 is about Bodhisattva wondrous sound, and chapter 25 is the cry regarder of the sounds of the world. These stories describe great bodhisattvas as mythic heroes. And like all the great bodhisattvas in these chapters that we've been studying, their superpower is presenting themselves to others in whatever form the person that they're responding to will find the most pleasing and acceptable. Nichiren considered both these bodhisattvas followers of the trace teaching whose time had passed, and there's no extant Nichiren mandala Gohonzon that has either bodhisattva on it. These bodhisattvas, like the ones we've been studying, they're all examples and role models for us how to live and be in the world. And are they real beings or metaphoric of other things, such as functions and processes of neurological, psychological, and emotional states? Today's Dharma talk is not going to answer that question. Only you can answer that question because this is your choice. First, I want to just ground a bit on myths. Myths express what normal words cannot, and they lay somewhere between fact and fiction, describing something that we as humans intuitively or perhaps even emotionally recognize as a genuine truth. This picture is a beautiful picture of the monkey king, the monkey god, and his name in Chinese was Sun Wukong, and he's a monkey born from a special stone who acquires through his practice supernatural powers, who then rebels against heaven. And at some point he got so mischievous that he was imprisoned under a mountain. And 500 years later, a monk from China, Tang Xuanzang, is going to go on a journey, a sojourn, to India and bring back to China more Buddhist sutras. When the Monkey King hears of this journey, he pleads that he can help protect Tang Xuanzang on this journey. And Kuan Yin, the regarder of the cries of the world in chapter 25, gives the Monkey King and 2 other companions to Tang for protection on his quest. Understanding the Monkey King will be difficult to control, Kuan Yin gives Tang a gift from the Buddha, a magical circlet, which he wears around his head. And when he puts it on, he cannot remove it. And Tang can control him if he gets out of, starts up to more mischief. At the end of the quest, which was successful, for his service, the Monkey King attains his freedom and awakening, becoming known as victorious fighting Buddha. So this story, this quest, was all about transforming from unwholesome deeds through service to others that he too attained Buddhahood. Now, when we look at bodhisattvas, are they real or metaphorical? First, I want to say that if you believe they are real, that is totally okay. That's fine. And if you choose to believe that they are simply functions and processes and workings of the universe, that's okay too. Whatever reference, whether they're real or metaphorical, whatever reference best serves you to feel connected with these beings, these messages, these processes that lead you to healing and transformation, that's great. We encourage that. Because our intention and imagination as humans is the most powerful resource we have. So this idea of reality, true reality, shohojiso, it involves a couple of things. One is there's you and there's others, yuibutsu, yobutsu. And then with these bodhisattvas that we talk about, this is a metaphysical reality. And as they're metaphysical, we really don't know if they're real or if they're simply functions and processes. So please don't get hung up on, gee, is it okay if I believe there's a real bodhisattva named Kuan Yin, or if it's just a function of loving kindness? It's okay. Either way, whatever way you can access these fundamental realities that speak to us in your heart, go with it. So today, the major themes, first of all, is the ideal versus the actual. And this is really interesting to me because I totally missed this. This is the key meaning of chapter 24. And Reverend Michael, as he helps me prepare for these, he tactfully asked me a question. Rather than telling me what to do, he says, Mark, what are your thoughts on this idea of the ideal and the actual, this great cosmic Bodhisattva and Buddha who are thousands and millions of yojanas high coming to visit the Saha world? How are you going to address this? And I thought to myself, I was going to gloss right over it because I didn't think it really was relevant. It seemed like one of these far-fetched kind of, metaphorical ideas that just was like, couldn't even relate to it. And I wonder, and I said to myself, I wonder why this is important. So I really started to think about it. And the more I thought about it, I realized that the bullet point on ideal versus actual, that the fantastic cosmic represents the ideal, which seems to be so beyond the actual, us, as to be unrelatable and discouraging to mere mortals that we feel like this idealized behavior is just simply not possible. And then when we realize that even these small beings, as defiled as we are still able to realize awakening. And secondly, the point of large goals are aspirational and guiding principles we use to keep going. And when we fall back, we pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and begin again. So this whole thing is a giant metaphor for life and our own meditation. And the first of these superpowers between the ideal and the actual is listening, deep, empathic listening. And then it's sound. That the sound, this idea of kyo, sound and vibration, resonates out throughout the whole world. And of course, sound is the 30-second mark of the Buddha itself. And this idea of ideal and actual, that our lives and our bodies might appear to be defiled or just a meat suit, full of blood and fluids and poop and pee and whatever. And like, maybe it feels like it's not worthwhile being these beautiful bodhisattvas or this grand idea of what these heavenly realms look like. But our lives and our bodies are beautiful and are sublime. And listening is observing, is insight. As we just chanted, true regard, wise regard, compassionate regard, and active, deep, empathic listening connects two people together in these yui butsu yo butsu moments. And because we're so deeply connected, just the act of listening and hearing is transformative for both of us, the person that's talking and also the person that's giving this regarding. So the power of words is incredibly important. And word, as the Bible says, word was with God and word was God. And every word matters and every word counts. And chanting is this incredibly powerful declaration of active expression, a doing. It's when we chant, we're saying, I am here in the world. I am present. I am awakening. Now, the next point that I want to come out that was really interesting to me was they've used the word play quite a bit. For instance, the samadhi of transcendent power, the play of transcendent powers of the Tathagata. The message here is be playful in your practice. Stop being concerned about the right way, the true way. Am I doing it right? This organization is true Buddhism. This organization is not true Buddhism. We get stuck in like, I don't know what to believe anymore. I want to be, right. It doesn't, that's not the point. The point is to be joyful and have these wonderfully joyful experiences when we chant out loud and express this devotion of Myoho Renge Kyo, which is resonating to the whole universe. So be playful in your practice. Try different things. It's okay. See what works best for you. And knowing that we're not alone, it's okay to ask for help. That's the whole point of these chapters, is that these people are suffering and they say, I need help. Please help me. Cry regarder, true regard, wise regard, compassionate regard. We're not in it alone. That is the treasure of the Sangha. Please, it's okay to ask for help. You're not bad. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you for asking for help. We all need help. And bodhisattvas help appear in many forms. Again, their superpowers, they could appear in any form that the asker asked for. So bodhisattvas are everywhere and come in many forms, and that's their superpower. And as the old game was, are they animal, vegetable, or mineral? Yes. Bodhisattvas rendering service to others. That's what this is all about. So when we are of service to others, we are acting as bodhisattvas. So be of service to others in whatever way you can. Now, a little bit about Bodhisattva Wondrous Sound. I just love some of these names. Gadgata Savara. And they were a musician and composer in their former lives. And so their power was the power of sound, music, chanting, storytelling. And they were this cosmic bodhisattva, not of this world, hugely high, just like beautiful, magnificent, so beautiful that it was like painful to look at. And so they represent this ideal. And their superpower, again, this samadhi of understanding the words of all living beings, means that this is the ability to understand at a very deep, visceral, empathic level people's inner states, their longings, their deep longings, their sufferings, their desires, and their dreams. I want to read a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, Bodhisattva Wondrous Sound is someone who practices deeply this kind of music, divine music, otherworldly sense, which helps us in our practice. Sound, music, and chanting is one of the ways of practicing the path. A painter can make an offering of color and form to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. An architect can offer temples and stupas. A poet makes offerings of poems and poetic images. Bodhisattva Wondrous Sound is a musician, and his and her music is based on awakened understanding, on her insight in samadhi. Awakened understanding is the capacity to understand the hearts of the people, the inner expression as well as the words that people say. The kind of liberating music can go right to the heart of the people who hear it and transform their minds and hearts. Wondrous sounds created by this bodhisattva do not conjure up grief and lament, but bring about a sense of liberation, peace, and joy. Creating music that has the characteristic of awakening and liberation, that can nourish our faith, is a very worthy offering to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. When we sing a song of liberation, those who hear it feel their hearts lighten and give rise to joy and faith. We are following the path of Bodhisattva Wondrous Sound when we create sacred music, sacred art, sacred language. End quote. That was from Thich Nhat Hanh, from his book, Open Heart. So cosmic Buddha, this idea of the gap between the ideal and the actual. Now, the cosmic Buddha represents this transcendent, majestic, sweeping wisdom and compassion as powerful forces of awakening existence. Again, there's this gap, though, between ideal and actual. We feel that we can't attain the ideal, so we can, at some point, perhaps feel discouraged. It would seem so unobtainable to us as common, ignorant mortals. But what the famous expression, as above, so below, do not think that you are tiny and insignificant. Self-perception, awareness, self-esteem. Remember the parable of the wealthy man and the poor son, and the poor son thought he was so insignificant that he was his only worth was being able to shovel the manure in the stables. He didn't know that he was actually the son of the Buddha and inherited the Buddha, and he too would be a Buddha. He couldn't even imagine it. And so his thoughts were like, I'm only good enough to shovel poop. And so he had to go through this huge, long, many-year process of transformation before he realized, oh my gosh, I am the son of the Buddha. And in the sutra, it says, as the Buddha was encouraging Bodhisattva Wondrous Sound to go visit Shakyamuni, he says, look, do not think of that land as inferior or treat it lightly. The hills, valleys, small size of us represent the seemingly insignificance of common life. This is all metaphorical for common life, is where awakening happens. Shoji Soko Nehan. It doesn't happen somewhere else. This tiny life that seems so insignificant or inferior, this is the Buddha land. So the cosmic and the actual and the ideal come together. Our body is not some defiled, dirty meat suit. That's why we need meditations that explore our body. It's not just about mindfulness, it's about bodyfulness, of that somatic awareness and experience. So cosmos and the Saha world are one. The sublime and the mundane are one. Your mind and body are one. Insight and calming are one. Listening and sound are one. They're not two. There is no gap between these things. And so I want to come and emphasize this idea of sound briefly, and play just a short something for you to listen to. Now, I played that, and I've been thinking about this a lot. When it's time to go sit in front of our Gohonzon, we have entered the Buddha land, our representation of the Buddha land, our sacred space. We have become part of the ultimate dimension, this cosmic dimension, where we become and we celebrate by recreating a ceremony in the air. It's important to do so with some presence and some intention, and sitting in front of the Gohonzon, not racing to the Gohonzon and racing to be done, but this is like, wow, this is our opportunity to immerse ourselves. So when I sit down to chant, I ring the bell 3 times, and the first ring, I take a breath. And then another. So I just take a moment to calm myself and to set my intention to be present and alert when I begin chanting. Because what better place could there ever be but to sit in the Buddha land and experience that? So, regarder of the sounds of the world, chapter 25, the gateway to everywhere of the Bodhisattva who observes the sounds of the world is very important and read and recited often around the world. Universal gateway is part of her name. It means dropping one's ego to become open to what is going on around you, and by listening deeply. So being so present and aware and mindful in this deep listening that you realize it's not about I, me, or mine, and it's not just about you. It's this action of Kuan Yin, cry regarder, the universal gateway to liberation. Universal means the capacity to cover everything, all kinds of ground, all kinds of situations, every place and moment, all time and space. This is the kind of practice that responds to all situations of suffering. Kuan Yin, the Bodhisattva of love and compassion. No matter what the situation is, love is the answer. Loving kindness is the base of all of the 4 heavenly realms. Now, Kuan, so there's several different, so Avalokitesvara is the Sanskrit name. There's many translations of this. In Japanese, the 2 most common are Kannon or Kanzeon. In China, Kuan Yin, Guan Yin, Guan Shi Yin. Sanskrit, it translates directly into English as Lord who looks down, and in Chinese, it translates directly into she who observes the sounds of the world. Kuan, if you translate Kuan directly from the Sanskrit, means to observe, look deeply into, and recognize. So Kuan can translate into Vipassana, which is the insight meditation, and therefore goes with shamatha, calming. Shamatha means concentrating, calming, stopping. Shamatha and Vipassana are the 2 elements of all of our meditations: to stop, to concentrate, to look deeply into the object of meditation, which may be your anger, your despair, or a difficult situation in which you find yourself. Thanks to the practice of stopping and looking deeply, you attain freedom from suffering. Whoops, let me go back. I want to read one thing for Kanzeon, which is the Japanese translation, kan of Kanzeon, means contemplation, insight, observation, perceiver, and it represents the truth of non-substantiality. Ze is world and represents the truth of provisionality. And on, sounds, represents the truth of the middle way. So her very name is this three truths. Usually we speak of the object of meditation as an image that reaches us through sight, not sound. But looking deeply, in this case, means looking deeply into the sound that reaches our perception. The object of concentration is a sound, the sound of the world, the cries of the world, because suffering often expresses itself as a cry. Hoesi, Jiri, also known as Tendai, his teacher, is considered a reincarnation of Kannon, and Jiri was considered a reincarnation of the Medicine King from chapter 23. So I want to emphasize sound. That is why our practice of chanting, I think, is so powerful, because our meditation is expressing these truths as it's encapsulated in Myoho Renge Kyo. Michael sent me a recording, which is just a short recording. And in the translation of this recording, you're going to see it, that this is essentially a distillation and a condensing of the entire chapter 25. This is called the Enmai Juku Kanan Gyo, and it's very, very popular. This is the text itself. You'll hear it. Kanzean Namu Butsu Yobutsu U In Yobutsu U En Bupo So En Jo Raku Ga Jo Cho Nen Kanzean Bo Nen Kanzean Nen Nen Ju Shin Ki Nen Nen Fu Ri Shin, which translates as Kanzean, at one with the Buddha, related to all Buddhas in cause and effect, and to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, joyful, pure, eternal being. Morning mind is Kanzean, evening mind is Kanzean. This very moment arises from mind. This very moment is not separate from mind. So please turn up your sound and enjoy this recording of this chant.
Namu Butsu Yo Butsu En Yo Butsu En Beppo So En Joraku Ka Jo Chonen Hanze Ombo Nen Kanze On Nen Nen Jushin Ki Nen Nen Furishin Kanze On Namu Butsu Yo Tsu En Yo Butsu En Beppo So En Joraku Ga Jo Chonen Hanze Ombo Nen Kanze On Nen Nen Jushin Ki Nen Nen Furishin Hanze On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu En Yo Butsu En Beppo So En Joraku Ga Jo Chonen Kanze Ombo Nen Kanze On Nen Nen Jushin Ki Nen Nen Furishin Kanze On Namu Butsu Yo Butsu En Yo Butsu En Beppo So En Joraku Ga Jo Chonen Hanze Ombo Nen Kanze On Nen Nen Jushin Ki Nen Nen Furishin Kanze onnamu butsu yo butsu enbu bozo enjo raku ga jojo ne ande onbo nen ganze onnen nen yujingi nen nen buri ande onnamu butsu yo butsu bozo enjo raku ga jojo nen ganze onbo nen ganze onnen nen yujingi nen buri shin ganze onnamu butsu yo butsu bozo enjo raku ga jojo nen ganze onbo nen ganze onnen nen yujingi nen nen buri shin.
Avalokitesvara, koan. There was a story, a koan, and Yuan asked Dao Wu, how does the Bodhisattva of great compassion use all those hands and eyes? Dao Wu answered, it is like feeling behind you for a pillow in the middle of the night. I understand. What do you understand? The whole body is eyes and hands. That's very well expressed, but it only says 80%. What would you say, older brother? All through the body are hands and eyes. This was from the Blue Cliff Record, Case 89. Words matter. Words have direct and indirect impacts on the people who hear them. My wife, who is a retired acupuncturist, used to say words were needles too. They can hurt or heal. This superpower of deep listening. Listening is a learned skill that requires effort and conscious behavior. It's a practice. Transformation, healing, joy, and awakening occurs between two things. Uibutsu Yobutsu, the speaker and the listener. Deep listening itself is a meditation involving both shamatha, calming, and vipassana, insight, true regard, wise regard, compassionate regard. So what are some of the elements of this deep empathic listening? First is hear and understand what the speaker is saying. Give your full attention to who is speaking. Don't interrupt, let the speaker finish. Don't anticipate what the speaker is going to say, and allow yourself to finish listening before you speak. So deep listening is this superpower that we all have access to through practice in treating it like a meditation. True regard, pure regard, vastly wise regard, merciful regard, and compassionate regard. So how does this all work? When we deeply listen to another, we are connecting with them on levels beyond what we can see, hear, or touch. This idea, again, back to cosmic versus actual. This cosmic ultimate dimension, we can't see it, but we sure can feel it. The act of listening or observation not only reduces suffering, but transforms both the listener and the speaker. And on a quantum level, we can see some explanation of this unquantifiable effect, that the observer effect, one of the most bizarre premise of quantum theory, which has long fascinated philosophers and physicists alike, states that the very act of watching, observation, vipassana, the observer affects the observed reality. Both you and the speaker now change and are transformed. Your listening alone will quiet their discomfort and suffering. And then entanglement. How are we all connected and interconnected and interbeing and inter-are? Quantum entanglement is when two or more particles link up in a certain way. No matter how far apart they are in space, their states remain linked. That means they share a common, unified quantum state. So observations of one of the particles can automatically provide information about the other entangled particle, regardless of the distance between them. And any action to one of these particles will invariably impact the others in an entangled system. A great example of this, and I'm sure all of us have had this experience, where you're thinking about somebody and then they call you, or you get an email from them. It happens to me quite often. Now I want to play another video that I think was a beautiful representation of what being a bodhisattva is all about. And this is from a new TV series on Netflix called The Sandman, which I highly recommend. This is from episode 6.
I used to think I had to do this all by myself.
But you do.
No. At the end, I'm there with them. I'm holding their hand and they're holding mine. I'm not alone when I'm doing my job. Neither are you. Think about it. The only reason we even exist, you and I, and desire and despair, the whole family, we're here to serve them. It isn't about quests or finding purpose outside our function. Our purpose is our function. We're here for them. Since I figured that out, I realized I need them as much as they need me. I've seen so many cool things and people and worlds. I've learned so much. Lots of people don't have a job they love doing, do they? So, I think I'm really very lucky.
Aren't we all already incredibly lucky? Each one of us here today, and those of you listening online later, you are already a bodhisattva of the earth. You couldn't be here today if you weren't. You are a Buddha in the process of becoming a Buddha. Have no doubt about this. Offering service to others is the best medicine of all, and it gives our lives meaning and purpose. And bodhisattvas are everywhere. How many of you heard the story of the Thai boys in 2018 who were stuck in a cave 2.5 miles from the entrance to the cave during a monsoon season, and the cave became flooded? This Thai boys cave rescue is incredibly visualized in 2 wonderful movies. I would really encourage you to watch them. One is The Rescue, which is a National Geographic production. It's available on Disney Plus, and just came out 2 weeks ago, a film by Ron Howard, which the first one, The Rescue, is a documentary. And the second one is a dramatization of it that Ron Howard produced called 13 Lives, and that's available on Amazon. Just riveting. If you were going to watch them, I would watch the documentary first and then watch the dramatization. But kudos to Ron Howard, because he really stuck very closely to the actual story. This is an actual picture from the documentary. This is one of the 2 English cave divers who led the rescue effort. They subsequently became knighted. They are some really interesting individuals. Their backstory is fascinating. They are truly otherworldly. You would, I don't want to, no spoilers, but they're just amazing people, and they're just different, super different. Imagine 2.5 miles in a cave where you can't stand up and you have to scuba dive to collect somebody. It's just incredibly crazy. This is a film. This is a picture, same picture. This is from the actual dramatization. That's Colin Farrell, tremendous Irish actor. Now, we are all bodhisattvas. This is a picture from a sheriff who saw a homeless person, bought him lunch, heard his story. He's been trying to get home, couldn't get home. So he and a couple of his cop friends collected a couple $100, and they got the guy a bus ticket, got him home for Christmas. His family was so happy about that. So whether you're a teacher or a therapist or a nurse or a guide or a translator waiters, waitresses, firemen, police officers, soldiers. Serving others is what it's all about. So be the best bodhisattva you can be. Offer service to others, because serving others also serves yourself through this yui butsu, yo butsu interaction moment. Healing others heals yourself. The very act of service changes the world. So as we're a little over time. I apologize for that. This last slide is how we always close up with, what does this all mean to us? What does chapter 24 and 25 mean to us? First of all, do not think of yourself as inferior or insignificant. You're not. You're beautiful. It's okay to ask for help. That's what we're all here as Sangha members, brothers and sisters and siblings in the Dharma, good Buddhist friends, Zen Chi Shiki. Have trust and confidence that your Odaimoku sound permeates the entire universe, and through the quantum entanglement links, it does affect your reality. Practice body awareness as well as mental awareness. Practice deep listening as a meditation. Open your heart and mind to what is around you. Help appears in many forms, and sometimes where you least expect it. Animal, mineral, vegetable. Yes, it could be a dog. It could be a therapist. It could be your teacher. Kuan Yin is going to come to you in many ways if you're open. If you're not open, you may miss it. Be playful in your practice and in your life. Don't worry about being dogmatic or orthodox. It just doesn't matter. Just chant, enjoy yourself, have fun with your practice. Find hobbies and ways to be creative. Sing, dance, paint, knit, scrapbook, write, hike, do things that just make you happy and that you can share with other people. And through the sharing with other people, you can share the power of your daimoku with them. Find ways to be of service to others, because it is in service to others that we are bodhisattvas, that we transform the world. Everything that we just talked about is contained in this meditation container of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. So I leave you with this question. I hope today its Dharma talk was inspiring and encourages you and inspires you, and that you want to chant more. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo.